What if I told you that water, plain, cold, straight from the tap water, isn't actually the fastest way to rehydrate your body? It sounds backwards, I know. But our great-grandparents never reached for a bottle of water after a long day in the field. They reached for what was already sitting in the kitchen, the root cellar, the garden. And it turns out, generations of them were onto something modern science is only now catching up to. Today, we're going through 20 of those old rehydration secrets, the ones our ancestors leaned on before anybody ever heard the word electrolyte. Number 3 is something most folks pour straight down the drain without a second thought. And number 14 is a drink that sounds almost too plain to work, until you hear why it kept entire villages going through the worst of the heat. We post new videos every week about old world remedies and homestead wisdom, so if that's your kind of thing, hit subscribe and ring that bell so you don't miss what's coming. Alright, let's get into it. Coconut water, the original sports drink. Sailors in the Pacific Islands and coastal communities across the Philippines and the Caribbean have sipped straight from the shell for centuries, long before anyone bottled it. Here's why that matters. Coconut water carries a natural balance of sodium and potassium, and your gut uses a process called sodium glucose cotransport to pull water into your bloodstream faster when those two travel together. Research has looked at coconut water as a rehydration option after light to moderate activity, and it holds up well. Crack one open and drink it fresh if you can. Just know the sodium content is fairly low, so on a hot, heavy sweat day, you may want to pair it with a pinch of salt. Watermelon juice. Summer in a glass. And a trick as old as the old country itself. Farmers in the Mediterranean and in West Africa have long known that watermelon rind and juice cool the body from the inside. Here's what most people miss. Watermelon is over 90% water. But it also carries potassium, which your muscles and nerves depend on to keep firing correctly when you're low on fluid. Studies comparing watermelon juice to plain water after exercise have found it holds hydration markers just as well, sometimes better. Blend the flesh, strain if you like it smooth, and drink it chilled. It's naturally sweet, so there's no need to add sugar. Pickle brine. Yes, the jar water you've been dumping out. Wrestlers in Eastern Europe and dock workers in the American South have sipped brine straight from the jar for generations to stop a cramp in its tracks. Here's why that matters. Brine is loaded with sodium, and sodium is what your body loses fastest through sweat. When sodium runs low, your nerves start misfiring, and that's often what a muscle cramp actually is. Research on pickle juice specifically has found it can ease cramping within minutes, faster than water alone. A small shot glass is plenty. This is potent stuff. And if you're watching your blood pressure or on blood pressure medication, this is one to sip carefully or skip. Bone broth. The homestead's original recovery drink, simmered low and slow the way our great-grandmothers did it. Cultures from old Jewish kitchens to traditional Chinese medicine to the French countryside have all leaned on a good broth to nurse someone back to strength. Here's what most people miss. Broth carries sodium and potassium pulled from the bones and vegetables during that long simmer. And warm fluid is absorbed by the gut a little differently than cold, encouraging steady sipping instead of a hard gulp. Studies on broth-based rehydration are limited, but promising for general fluid and mineral intake. Simmer bones with a bit of salt and root vegetables for at least 8 hours, and season to taste. Just watch the sodium if you're on a restricted diet. Beet juice, the old root cellar staple, and one our ancestors in Eastern Europe practically lived on through the winter. Borscht country. Poland, Ukraine, Russia built entire cuisines around this root. Here's what most people miss. Beets are high in dietary nitrates, and your body converts those nitrates into nitric oxide, which opens up your blood vessels and helps blood and the fluid and minerals it carries move through your body more efficiently. Studies on beet juice and circulation are some of the most consistent in all of nutrition science. Juice it raw or use the juice from a batch of pickled beets. It can turn your urine pink or red. That's harmless. Just don't be alarmed by it. Whole milk. Something your grandparents drank without a second thought. And it turns out the science backs them up. Dairy farming communities from Ireland to the Alps to Mongolia have relied on milk as an everyday staple, not just a treat. Here's why that matters. Milk naturally contains sodium, potassium, and protein together, and that combination has been shown to slow the rate fluid passes out of your system, meaning it stays with you longer than water does. Research comparing milk to sports drinks and water for rehydration has repeatedly found milk holds its own or wins outright. A cold glass after a sweaty day works, though if you're sensitive to dairy, this one's not for you. Reach for one of the plant-based options instead. If you're noticing a pattern here, real food, real minerals, nothing from a lab, you already know what to do. Hit that like button and let's keep going, because we've still got some good ones left. Orange juice, a breakfast staple that's really an old remedy in disguise. Sailors on long voyages and citrus growers in Spain and Florida have known for centuries that oranges kept people going. Here's what most people miss. Orange juice carries potassium and natural sugars, and that sugar actually helps your gut absorb sodium and water faster through the same co-transport system coconut water uses. Studies on citrus juice and post-exercise rehydration have shown results comparable to standard sports drinks. Fresh squeezed is best. A small glass goes a long way, since the natural sugar content adds up quickly if you're drinking it by the pitcher. Chia fresca, an old Aztec and Mexican countryside drink. Chia seeds soaked in water with a squeeze of lime. Here's why that matters. Chia seeds swell up and form a gel that slows how quickly fluid moves through your digestive system, giving your body more time to actually absorb the water and the small amount of minerals in the seeds, rather than passing it through too fast. Research on chia and hydration is still early, but the gel-forming mechanism itself is well established in food science. Soak 2 tablespoons of seeds in a glass of water for 20 minutes, add lime and a pinch of salt. It has a strange texture at first. Most people get used to it after a try or two. Celery juice, the pale green drink that's gone viral in recent years, but the roots go back to old European herbal traditions. Here's why that matters. Celery is another nitrate-rich vegetable, working through that same nitric oxide pathway as beets to support blood flow. And it also carries a modest amount of natural sodium, unusual for a vegetable. Research specifically on celery juice and hydration is thin, but the nitrate mechanism is well documented in the broader vegetable juice literature. Juice a full bunch, drink it fresh. It doesn't keep well, so make only what you'll finish that day. Cucumber mint water. About as simple as it gets, and that's the whole point. Old country kitchens across the Middle East and North Africa have flavored their drinking water with cucumber and mint for generations, partly for taste, partly because it encouraged people to drink more of it. Here's what most people miss. Cucumbers are almost entirely water, with a bit of potassium. So the hydration benefit here comes less from minerals and more from simply making plain water appealing enough that people actually drink enough of it. Slice cucumber and a few mint leaves into a pitcher, let it sit a few hours in the fridge. There's no real caveat here. It's about as gentle as a drink gets. Potato water. The water left over from boiling potatoes, something no thrifty homestead kitchen ever threw out. Irish and Andean households, the very places potatoes came from and where they became a way of life, have long saved this water for soups and drinking both. Here's why that matters. Potatoes leach potassium into the boiling water, and potassium is essential for muscle and nerve function, especially after you've lost a lot of it through sweat. There isn't much formal research on potato water specifically, so take this one as traditional practice more than proven science. Save the water after boiling unsalted potatoes. Let it cool and sip it plain, or use it as the base for a soup. Banana smoothie,
About the simplest recovery drink your grandparents ever made, usually with nothing more than a banana and some milk. Tropical farming communities, from the Caribbean to Southeast Asia, have relied on bananas as an everyday potassium source for generations. Here's what most people miss. Bananas are one of the most concentrated everyday sources of potassium, which, as we've covered, your muscles and nerves need to function properly once you've sweated a lot of it out. Studies on bananas versus sports drinks during exercise have found them roughly comparable for maintaining performance. Blend one ripe banana with a cup of milk or a milk alternative and a pinch of salt. Maple water. Not maple syrup, the raw sap itself, tapped straight from the tree, the way it's been done in the northeastern woodlands and in French-Canadian sugar bush traditions for centuries. Here's why that matters. Raw maple sap carries a light, natural sweetness, along with trace minerals, including potassium and manganese, and that small amount of sugar can help the body take up fluid slightly faster than plain water, similar in principle to orange juice, just far more diluted. Research on maple water specifically is limited, so consider it a gentler, unproven cousin of the better-studied fruit juices on this list. Drink it straight from a fresh tap if you're lucky enough to have access, or look for unpasteurized bottled versions.
Aloe vera juice. An old remedy from hot, dry climates, North Africa, the Middle East, parts of Mexico, where aloe grew wild and people learned to use nearly every part of the plant. Here's what most people miss. Aloe juice is mostly water, with a modest mineral content, and some research suggests the inner gel may support gut lining function, which in theory could make fluid absorption a bit more efficient, though the evidence here is genuinely thinner than for most items on this list. Use a food-grade, properly prepared aloe juice only. The outer leaf contains compounds that can cause stomach upset, so this is one where store-bought, purified versions are safer than a home preparation, unless you really know what you're doing. Papaya juice, a tropical staple from Central America and the Philippines, where the fruit and even its seeds have been used in traditional remedies for generations. Here's why that matters. Papaya carries potassium, along with digestive enzymes like papain, and a smoother running digestive system tends to absorb fluid and minerals more consistently. Research on papaya's digestive enzymes is fairly well established, though its direct link to hydration specifically is more assumed than proven. Blend fresh papaya with a splash of water and strain if you prefer it smooth. It's naturally sweet enough that no added sugar is needed.
Salt, lemon, and honey water. About as close as you'll get to a homemade version of what doctors actually hand out in clinics. This exact combination, or something close to it, has shown up in home remedies from South Asia to Latin America for generations, long before oral rehydration packets existed. Here's what most people miss. This simple mix hits all three pieces at once: sodium from the salt, glucose from the honey, and that same co-transport mechanism we've talked about all through this list, pulling sodium and water into your bloodstream together faster than water alone ever could. This exact principle is the backbone of oral rehydration solutions used in hospitals and clinics around the world for serious dehydration. Mix a small pinch of salt, a tablespoon of honey, and the juice of half a lemon into a glass of water. Because this one is more concentrated in sodium and sugar than most others on this list, it's best reserved for genuine hard sweat days, rather than sipped as an everyday habit. And if you have kidney concerns or diabetes, check with a doctor before making this a regular thing. Tomato juice, a homestead staple that doubled as a hangover cure and a hydration drink long before anyone called it either. Southern Italian and American farm kitchens have canned and juiced tomatoes by the barrel for generations. Here's why that matters. Tomatoes carry potassium and a modest amount of natural sodium together, plus lycopene, which has been studied for reducing exercise-related inflammation. Research on tomato juice after exercise has found it compares well to standard sports drinks for replenishing lost fluid. A small glass, fresh pressed or canned without added sugar, works well. Watch the sodium if you're using a store-bought version, since some brands add far more salt than a fresh tomato ever had.
Rice water, or congee as it's called in South Asian kitchens. one of the oldest rehydration drinks in the world, used across India, China, and Southeast Asia for as long as rice itself has been cooked. Here's what most people miss. Rice water contains starches that break down into glucose, and that glucose, much like in orange juice or coconut water, helps your gut pull sodium and fluid in faster together. This mechanism is actually the foundation of modern oral rehydration therapy, used worldwide for dehydration from illness. Save the starchy water after boiling rice, add a small pinch of salt, and drink it warm or cooled. It's plain and starchy, not something you'll crave for flavor, but it's one of the most effective drinks on this whole list.
Salt, lemon, and honey water. About as close as you'll get to a homemade version of what doctors actually hand out in clinics. This exact combination, or something close to it, has shown up in home remedies from South Asia to Latin America for generations, long before oral rehydration packets existed. Here's what most people miss. This simple mix hits all three pieces at once: sodium from the salt, glucose from the honey, and that same co-transport mechanism we've talked about all through this list, pulling sodium and water into your bloodstream together faster than water alone ever could. This exact principle is the backbone of oral rehydration solutions used in hospitals and clinics around the world for serious dehydration. Mix a small pinch of salt, a tablespoon of honey, and the juice of half a lemon into a glass of water. Because this one is more concentrated in sodium and sugar than most others on this list, it's best reserved for genuine hard sweat days, rather than sipped as an everyday habit. And if you have kidney concerns or diabetes, check with a doctor before making this a regular thing.
So there you have it, 20 drinks, but really they all boil down to 3 or 4 families. You've got your sodium restorers, the pickle brine, the sauerkraut, the salt and lemon water for when you've sweated hard and fast. You've got your potassium restorers, the banana, the potato water, the tomato juice, the watermelon for keeping your muscles and nerves steady day to day. You've got your circulation boosters, the beet juice and the celery juice, working through that nitric oxide pathway to move everything where it needs to go. And you've got your gentle, everyday sippers, the cucumber water, the maple water, the aloe, for when you just need to drink more, plain and simple.